What is up, and welcome back to Talking Nutrition. Today we are joined by Tara Nicole. What's up, Tara? Welcome
Yes,
back.
I know. Thank you.
When was the last time we did a podcast?
Shoot, that was like 2023, end of 2023, maybe.
Think so. Yeah, I think
Summer
so. It's been a while.
2023. That, yeah, a year and a half.
Year and a half. And now you're pregnant.
Now I'm
Congrats, first of all.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How are you feeling in general?
If we say like a scale of 1 to 10, on average, I'm like a 6.5.
Pretty solid still, I guess.
It's okay.
Manageable, right?
Like the 8, 9 range, but
Yeah. Is it
I
like
would
very up and down?
Yes, it definitely varies by the week, which I think is the craziest part. Because like obviously the baby is growing every single week, so it's like I use this app, or I was using this app. I've actually deleted it because mentally it just felt like it was going to be forever, continuing to like, okay, week 22, week 23, week 24, and it's just like if you're saying 22 out of 40 weeks and you've already been pregnant for 22 weeks, you got to get to 40. It was just like, okay, I can't do this anymore because it's not, obviously it's a patience game and you want baby healthy and growing, but it's like 22 weeks just sounds like if you think about a cut, you're in a deficit
Long
for
time.
22 weeks. That's a long time. And you got to go to 40. That's how I like break it down. So the little weekly milestones don't make a ton of progress. So again, it just feels like cool. Last week it was the size of a bunch of grapes. This week it's the size of an orange. That seems like it's smaller to me than a bunch of, you know what I mean? So it's been tough mentally. It definitely changes by the week, and then sometimes the days vary, but I feel like that's usually based on the activity that I did the day prior.
How's your back doing? Because I know we were talking about this beforehand. Like,
Yeah, it's getting tough. It's like there's a hormone that your body produces when you're pregnant called relaxin, and like ironically enough, it's not like a good like helps you relax. It's the opposite. So I have a lot of relaxin being produced right now, and it's just causing more back pain than I'm used to than I've ever experienced before, and also just with my physique prior to going into pregnancy, like just being pretty lean. I'm not used to having so much weight front loaded. So it's starting to like take a toll on my back, and I feel the difference literally every day, just getting up and trying to move around. It's just like so tight. So that's been interesting to navigate with like workouts and even just like daily steps and stuff. It's getting kind of tough.
yeah. Because you've always been active, right? So like obviously you run and work out a lot, and I know you played sports in the past. That must be weird too, right? To now do a whole bunch less.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, because you see, at least for me, I saw, women on Instagram prior to getting pregnant saying, like, you can still do, you can still work out, you can still do all these things, and you can, but it's just such a different, like, way that you can do it. Obviously, the intensity just isn't there, which for me mentally is been tough because like some days, like, if you're stressed, you don't really have any sort of like outlet to kind of like relieve that stress. And like, prior to being pregnant, for me, that was like going for a run, or just getting in like a good high quality training session in. Now it's kind of like, all right, like I gotta take it a little easy. So it's like those endorphins that are usually produced, like when you're truly challenging yourself in the gym, is just not there because I'm operating at like maybe 40, 50% intensity as opposed to the days where I feel like I need like 80, 90%. Like it's just not there. So it's just interesting to like navigate. I'm still trying to do as much as I can, but it's like if I do too much one day, then that might put me out for 2 days. So it's like, was it actually worth going that hard for the one day, knowing that, the next couple of days I'm going to be hurting? So it's just like stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's good that we're still moving, but yeah, I can imagine, especially like I said, because I know you do a lot of running and stuff, like
Mhm.
wanting to do like 80, 90% and then having to stick to like 40, 50, like that must also be kind of like a mental challenge sometimes, right?
For sure, yeah. And like that's why I stopped running. So I ran all the way up until 21 weeks. And it really just turned into, it wasn't the actual like running that was tough, it was how I felt after. So I would run like 3 miles, and then for the next 2 days, I would be so sore, it felt like I couldn't even like really walk. So it's like, all right, like ROI just isn't there. It's not worth it. But then mentally, it sucks because it's like I feel fine and I feel like I should be able to do these things and I can't do them, or at least I can't do them in the way that I used to do them in a way that's like most productive for me mentally. So then you just feel like you just, I, at least for me, I got in the like habit of just kind of feeling sorry for myself of like this sucks. I'm just sitting here all day and I don't want to be sitting here all day and I need to like get out and get moving, but again, it's just like you can't, or at least not in the same way that you used to. So I didn't expect it to be as mentally challenging as it has been. And then, you throw in like, you can't drink alcohol and stuff like that. Usually, because I've been injured before. Like I've had 2022, I had 3 different surgeries. So that was the most time that I had taken off from the gym. But I still had those other like vices that I could lean on to where it's like, all right, like feeling stressed, let me have a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine at the end of the day type of thing. And at least I'm feeling like whether it's masking it or actually like resolving the issue, at least I feel better. Whereas with this, it's like I can't work out, can't like relieve the stress that way, can't drink. So it's just like, cool, we're just sitting here with all the thoughts, all the feelings, knowing that tomorrow is going to be the exact same day. So it's a lot more mentally challenging than I expected it to be.
And that's even for someone like you who's used to pushing quite hard at the gym, challenging yourself, right? So I can imagine, like we were talking before we hit record, like I've had multiple clients like become pregnant, and then, like I said, right, we kind of stop coaching at some point, and then they'll usually come back afterwards to kind of pick it up again. But from what I've seen, I mean, I can't relate. I'm a dude, first of all, right?
Yeah.
But like what I've seen with my clients, it's definitely a period where mentally, also physically, there's so many changes that make it also difficult to kind of keep that healthy lifestyle as much as you might be used to that, right? As much as you may technically already have the healthy habits, it's hard to keep up, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, once me and my husband got to the point of even thinking about trying to conceive, I I think I listened to a podcast from the owner of the prenatal supplement that I had started taking, and it made a lot of sense to me, and it kind of like it made sense thinking about fitness too, and like how I approach nutrition. Specifically, like if you're dieting, right? So say you have a client who wants to start a cut or eating in a deficit, but they're not in the proper like place to go right into a deficit, right? So you want to think about bringing their baseline up before you bring it down, right? Because if you start and it's already, at 50%, knowing that you're going to take calories away, then they're struggling, right? So it's like, let's try and bring you up to maybe 70, 80%. Then we take you down to 50, and it's, you know what I'm saying? So I approached pregnancy the same way, to where it's like, okay, if my baseline is typically at 50%, pregnancy is a state of depletion, right? You're giving away. Like I am pieces, like parts of me are literally being taken away to grow a baby, right? I'm in a phase of depletion right now. It's the same as a deficit. So it's like I need to start in a surplus so that when that point comes, maybe it feels like close to my baseline, but I don't feel too far into a deficit for the entire 10 months of pregnancy. I'm obviously going to get there at a certain point, but I'm not starting there and then taking away. So that just kind of flipped this switch mentally for me, to where it's like, okay, let me do everything in my power to get ahead, to like think about starting in a surplus, knowing that it's going to gradually get into a deficit. That really just looked like, one, from a strength perspective of like preparing my body physically, to be pregnant. So really focused. I was like running a lot at that point. I I was still lifting, but it was kind of like, like just checking the box, like just saying I did the lift just to do it. It was like, okay, let me switch gears. Let me really get back into like proper strength training and like build up my strength again. And then nutritionally, same thing of like, all right, let's load up on the nutrients. So, like I had started taking a prenatal pretty early, um, for like really the first 6 months of the year before I had even, gotten pregnant, tried to get pregnant or anything, just to kind of like build that nutritional base to where again, like now these, the nutrients that I have are being transferred over to the baby. That's going to leave me depleted. So it's like, let's try and get ahead of that. So supplementation was really big for me early on, and then again, just like fitness, really working on like, all right, let's feel strong again, and not just like I'm just doing cardio
Yeah,
nonstop.
I love that. I think it's a great way to approach it because you want to kind of like get ready for that, right? The body's going to go through quite a lot. You definitely don't want to be under eating. Extra focus on like nutrients. So I like that. I think that's a good approach. I think I had a client recently who I'm thinking of now. Like she was just about to wrap up her cut, and then she mentioned, "Hey, I'm actually like just letting you know, like pretty soon we're going to try to get pregnant."
Hmm.
And we had that conversation. I was like, "Great, cool." Like this, especially now means we're going to bump those calories up.
Yeah.
We're going to go to maintenance and try to even achieve like a high maintenance, just keep adding, adding, adding.
Yep.
Extra focus on the whole foods and just really making sure we're in a good spot.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's maybe something a lot of people don't think about, don't realize, or maybe don't know, of course. It's like, it's not always as simple as, hey, I want to get pregnant. Let's go, let's try.
Hmm.
Like some people can't, right? And that very often has to do with the state of their health as a whole, their hormones and everything else. So you want to prep for that, right?
Yep.
So you were definitely already like in that process before even actually getting pregnant then for a
Yeah.
while.
Me and my husband joke of like I may have like made myself like too fertile, like accidentally.
Okay.
Because I'm talking like I was on like, and I still am, but there's a book I read, Eat Real Food for Pregnancy. That is just such a great resource. And for me, I felt like it was so validating because even in the book, she mentions tracking your food and having that general understanding of how much you're consuming because as you know, like most people in general have no clue, so but she also focuses a lot on animal-based diets, pre-conception and then prenatal as well. So I had started, I don't know if it's like how it is out there, but here there's like this like you get all the ancestral blend meats to
Oh,
where
yeah.
if you have ground beef, then it also has liver and heart in it as well. So I was like eating that stuff as my main like source of protein, to where I was getting all of this like beef liver, all like the organ meats and stuff because it's so nutrient dense and like I just didn't have an issue getting
Yeah.
pregnant. So my
There you go.
again, like we kind of joke of like may have done too much. I had my husband Nick doing like supplementation as well because male sperm matters just as much, if not more sometimes. Like the health of the sperm too. Like obviously like just being able to produce semen and all of that is one thing, but it's like you want to have the best batch of semen possible. So I found a supplement company that made products for men's fertility. So I had him taking like all the supplements and like he didn't really like understand but I was just like, hey, like I need you taking this stuff.
You're like, just
So
take this. Like,
yeah, yeah, and it like little things like we cut out alcohol, um, stopped doing that, and then again just him focusing on lifting weights and continuing to lift weights and all of that. So just trying to like we joke now of like we try to like create a super baby, like trying to like hack the system. But I mean I guess it worked. I don't really know,
so
but
far,
I
so
just
good.
think yeah, I just think it all matters and it's all important and it's like it's one thing to be able to do something if you have a deeper knowledge base, or you're starting with a higher like baseline of knowledge when it comes to nutrition and health. Like, why not try and optimize it for like creating life? Like, that just made sense to me. So it's like anything that we can do to optimize this, like not even just to like get pregnant, but to like have a healthy baby, have a strong baby. Because, like, when you talk to people about, conception and having babies, it's always like, well, I just want the baby to be healthy. But then people proceed to not do very many things that are going to like contribute to having a healthy baby. And I think it's kind of crazy. I guess it's like a bit controversial as well, because pregnancy is such like a touchy subject for women. Um, but for me personally, like with my background and everything that I do, it just makes made sense to be like, how can I go about this in the best way possible relative to like what I'm already doing for myself and like what I already know. So,
Yeah. It's good to have that baseline. I think it's also difficult because, I mean, again, like you mentioned this, a lot of people don't know how to eat well, right? Maybe they are still thinking of a fat loss goal or those kind of things. And then if at that point in life, they then also want to become pregnant, it's even more difficult, I feel like, because the habits are not there yet. And like we haven't learned from tracking yet. We're going to have to say like, hey, probably not going to be in a deficit for a while, you know?
right. Yeah. And I can't imagine being pregnant with no prior like base. Like, it just has to, because it's already difficult, right? Like, even for like someone like me, my background, whatever, it's tough. I can't imagine having been, and obviously it's relative to you as a person, but I can't imagine having approached pregnancy being weak,
Fair
or
enough.
not like physically weak, right? Not understanding how to put together a basic meal of something that's, protein packed, nutrient dense, it's balanced. Like, it's like, that it has to be substantially more challenging. And then when you start thinking about like the mental aspect of it, obviously there's some people who kind of abuse fitness, to just have something that is a healthy and productive for most people habit that you can rely on for mental stress relief or to cope mentally, and to not have that and then be pregnant prior, oh my goodness. Like, I just, because it's like, again, like I'm struggling as is. So it's like, imagine someone who was super sedentary, very unhealthy, very weak, like physically, so like subjectively weak, and then they get pregnant. It's just like, how are you doing this? And I like
It's even more difficult. Yeah.
props to those people, right? Because that happens all the time. But it's like, yo, like if there's a better way that you can be pregnant, and it starts with before you get pregnant, then like why not try and pursue those things for yourself? So I think my mindset has shifted tremendously, because prior to like this phase of life that I'm in, fitness was, I just want to look good. I want to be shredded, I want to have abs, blah blah. And then you kind of progress into like, okay, the older I get, the more aches I feel. So not only do I want to look good, but I want to be able to perform well into later years of my life, not be all banged up. And then now it's changed tremendously to where it's like, yeah, I'm focused on longevity and the health aspect of this. So it's just like been interesting to see, even with my own personal journey of like looking back at like the archives on Instagram and seeing like the type of stuff that I used to post, and like why I posted it and like what I was doing at that point is like totally different than like how I'm approaching fitness now. But it all still matters. It all still contributes to the background that I have going into it. But again, I just can't imagine how difficult it is for women who have like just starting at zero and then they get pregnant, because it's like that has to be rough.
Yeah. I mean, and that even goes for any, even like, say, normal like fitness goal, right? Or health goal. Like if you're trying to dive in right away and get on this crash diet, whatever, and there's no preparation for that, like you said, right? Bring your metabolism to a good spot, building healthy habits, actually just fueling your body, nourishing, if you don't do that beforehand, like it's gonna be harder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just so important to think about this already. like before even actually getting pregnant. So let's say someone's listening and they're like, hey, actually I'm planning on getting pregnant. What's like a good period? Of course, it's going to be personal, but like, what would you say if we were to put like a timeline on this? Would you say dial things in health wise for 6 months or longer? Or it's a
Yeah,
big,
I'd
it
say,
depends question.
right, I'd say in a perfect world, a year. Ideal world, 6 months. Just doing what you can, three. But anything is going to be beneficial prior to like, hey, like now's the time, we're ready, let's start trying. So it obviously depends on like where you're starting from with that, but I'd really just say as much time as possible. And it just helps to like not put that stress on yourself, I think, too. Of like, say you do have a longer timeline, it's a year, it's like, okay, like you're stressed in the sense that like I'm not trying to learn everything all at once. I'm not trying to lose all, because I've had clients like that who are like, I'm thinking about getting pregnant and I want to lose like 30 pounds before I start getting pregnant. It's like, well, when do you want to do that? And it's like 3 months, and I'm like, girl, you're not losing 10 pounds a month for the next 3 months. So it's just like, give yourself the time to hit whatever goals you feel like make sense for you before you approach that phase of, trying to get pregnant. So whatever leg up you can give yourself, I think.
And now, because of you going through this process yourself, do you feel like you're also going to do more in terms of, pre, post pregnancy, etc., with your content and like stuff you do with your clients, for example?
For sure. Yeah, I think for me, I've always tried to practice what I preach when it comes to coaching. And so, how I was saying before, of like my mindset with fitness has shifted. It doesn't make sense. I feel like it doesn't make sense for me to be so focused on like, hey, we're going to track your macros, we're going to get you shredded, and then boom, that's it. Because that's not what I'm doing anymore, right? I'm switching gears, not completely, but how I approach things a little bit differently. I'm probably not even going to really track my macros. Um, at least not newly postpartum. Like, who knows when I'll get back into it, basically, right? Because I'm like on a really, a pretty high fat diet just because it's more nutrient dense, right? That is not conducive to tracking macros because more fat, more calories. So you're trying to hit these numbers and it's just like, I'm 85 grams of fat right now. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. So I definitely think that's something that just naturally makes sense for me to kind of transition into, not trying to be, like the prenatal specialist or anything like that, prenatal postpartum specialist, but again, just picking an approach that is most aligned with where I'm at, and then having my content and my coaching reflect that. Because if we look at it from an audience perspective, a lot of the people who follow me are in the same phase of life or are approaching that phase of life. So it's like, it's falling on deaf ears if I, just had a baby, I'm 2 months postpartum, and I'm talking about like how to grow your glutes. Like, and most of the people are in the same boat to where they just had a baby within the last year. They're trying to get back into it, like, and just generally feel good, feel healthy. Like, it just doesn't make sense for that to not be my same message. So yeah, it's something that I'm trying to gradually transition my content to. Again, it's just more reflective of where I'm at, knowing that there are other women who, are in their 30s, who are approaching motherhood or settling into motherhood, who still care about their health, they care about how they look, but it's like in a different way. So I've been trying to like, it's like back to the drawing board. I feel like content wise of like, okay, like, seeing what sticks, throwing out a bunch, seeing what sticks, see what's of most value for people, but also that feels aligned with me. That feels like, okay, I could sustain making content about this topic or this topic. Because that's, as you know, that's the only way that you can like stay consistent with content, is if it's something that resonates with you personally. And it's not easy for you to replicate, but you know enough about it, you feel strongly enough about it to be able to replicate it on a consistent basis.
Yeah. I think it's nice too because it shows like the seasonality of, I mean, life as a whole, but also nutrition, it's a big lesson for so many people, even without pregnancy. It's like, hey, like, we're not going to do everything all at once, all the time.
For sure.
You're going to have a muscle gain season, a fat loss season. Hey, maybe we need to just start with the basics and just do maintenance well.
Exactly.
As I was just telling you before we hit record, like my cardio at the moment is rough, you know. So I got to bring that back up. So now that I'm, back to maintenance pretty soon, probably like I'll get there like next week. I feel like I'm pretty close already, but I'm just continuing to add calories. Like I got to bring some cardio in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna have to probably go back to 5 times a week weightlifting instead of 6. As much as, like I said, my volume isn't that crazy. Like they're very doable sessions, usually 45 minutes. But I'm probably gonna have to introduce some cardio, and then it's gonna be a more health and cardio focused season, and just kind of
Right.
mostly maintaining muscle and maybe building also, but just making sure that that becomes now my focus for a while.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's can be tough to get people to understand that fitness and nutrition comes in seasons and it's not just like cut, 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 cut. It's like, hey, let's make sure we're doing things that make sense relative to your goal and where that puts you in this season of life. So, yeah.
Yeah. It also shows like, hey, you're going through periods where you're training less running, less weightlifting, no tracking. Those are great things. I think it's cool to see for people. So like that you're sharing that. That's why I wanted to bring you on, just to chat about this stuff, and also hearing it from someone who's actually pregnant. Because
Yeah.
I think getting it, like you said before we hit record again, like you said, like getting the information if you're not pregnant and then actually going through it yourself is very different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it also really depends on who that person is. So, I think for me, it's tough sharing certain aspects about pregnancy because everyone wants to give you advice. Everyone wants to share their personal experience. And, I don't want to feel like snobby about it, but at the same time, it's like you're not really someone, like, you really have to filter it out. Because for me, it's just like, I really appreciate you responding to this story with your experience, but you're not someone who it makes sense for me to listen to on certain things just because our lives are so totally different. Our lifestyles and how we operate on a day to day. So it's just like, it's like trying to give financial advice. It's like me trying to give financial advice to a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire, I don't know what it feels like to run a multi-million dollar business. So it's just like if I have a business, but it's not nearly on the same level as the millionaire, it's just like not to say I can't provide value, but it really just doesn't, like, my advice probably isn't going to resonate with that millionaire that much. And so that's how I've had to kind of like navigate and filter some of the advice and things that I've heard now actually being in it. I'm like, that doesn't make sense for me because that's not what I was doing before. That's not what I'm doing even now being pregnant. So it's all just really interesting how like the information, you think resonates with you or how you're going to be once you're pregnant. And then it changes once you actually are pregnant or experiencing it because you don't know what your symptoms are going to be before you get pregnant, right? So you're following information from people who, were morning sick their entire pregnancy. And then you get to pregnancy, and like for me, like I didn't have any morning sickness. So it's like some of the tips or, things that I had heard or known to be true prior to being pregnant did not apply to me. So it's just like it's tough to again get advice from certain people who are experiencing the same thing or have experienced the same thing, but in a totally different way. It's like if you have a client who wants to get just in general shape, learn about nutrition, and they hire a bodybuilding physique coach. That's probably not going to be the best fit of coach for you, right? They primarily work with people who are training to step on stage for a show, and you're just like trying to lose 10, 15 pounds, do it in a flexible way, still be able to go out here and there with your friends, have a couple of drinks. Like, you're not doing a show prep. So it's just like the same thing with pregnancy. You kind of have to filter out where you're getting information from. And fitness, especially with like lifting tips in pregnancy, it's just like, okay, you're someone who, even not pregnant, you're not lifting more than 20 pounds. Might not be the best person for me to listen to, you know what I mean? When it's like, I'm deadlifting 300. How we approach this is going to be totally different.
Yeah. And it's also not even in a judging way either. It's just
For
we're at
sure,
different
yeah.
places, different stages of health and fitness. And yeah, absolutely. And I can also imagine that this is especially difficult for people who, I mean, you're a coach, right? You do this stuff like myself. So we potentially have a bit more of an understanding, probably, right, of certain things, or maybe even just where to find good information and
Hmm.
how to kind of tell something is probably bullshit or maybe not or actually
Right,
true, or that's already
right.
difficult, I think. So let me ask you this, because obviously you've been looking into this more yourself as you were going through this process and even before. Where have you found like the most like helpful advice, fitness, lifestyle, nutrition wise, and was maybe like a good source for people?
I would start with doulas, like doulas, midwives, just because their approach tends to be more holistic. I mean, if that's what you're into, it tends to be a little more holistic, um, and like just general lifestyle based knowledge on pregnancy. Then from there, I would look into like DPT, so doctor of physical therapies, who specialize in like pelvic floor, pre postnatal nutrition. That's who I get a lot of my information from, because it's like they have this knowledge, to where they went to school for it, and then they kind of just chose their own lane. They didn't like generalize. You see what I'm saying? To where like my PT, my prenatal PT, she's CSCS, right? She's strong as shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it makes sense for me to work with someone like her and to listen to what she's saying about pregnancy and lifting while being pregnant, as opposed to, no offense, like I know this like ruffles a lot of feathers, but to the doctor who knows OBGYN, been an OBGYN for the last 25 years, they don't lift weights, they tell your clients, now that you're pregnant, you're probably not going to want to do too much, probably not going to want to lift too. It doesn't make sense for me to listen to that doctor, because they're not doing it and they're not prescribing it to people who want to do that. Whereas like with like again using the physical therapist as an example, not to say like the knowledge base is different or any more credible, it just is more relevant to my interest and what I was doing prior to getting pregnant. So, sources to stay away from: Google. Everyone just wants to Google everything of like, oh, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling like, how much should, you lift and stuff. Because like even, going into pregnancy, I was under the impression that I don't need to train core anymore, and like I shouldn't train core because like, your abs are gonna separate and all this other stuff. My PT, she was like, no, 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 no. You still need to train your core, and like, she loaded up a whole bunch of exercises for me, and I'm like, oh, I can still do all of this, like it's fine if I do it. And she's like, yeah, you need it, right? Like you need that base of support. So I would summarize that. I would say credible people in the field who are similar to you and your interests, as opposed to just general searches on Instagram, whatever pops up on your feed, Google searches, or just like any woman that you've ever known who's been pregnant before. Because like to your point, like I've had women who, like, this is what I do, like, right, nutrition coach, I've had women slide into my DMs with advice on dieting stuff, and I'm like, in no world does that make sense, pregnant or not. And it's especially doesn't make sense being pregnant. So it's like, what, like, just because you've
Yeah,
been pregnant before doesn't necessarily give you the authority to like advise other people on what to do, especially if it's just like, why do you think that makes sense?
yeah. Which also
On a,
makes this conversation difficult, I think, or this
it's super
whole
difficult, yeah.
yeah, this, because obviously people mean well, first of all. Or maybe they're just excited. Hey, this worked really well for me. And you know what? Maybe it did. Maybe it did. But like, it makes it difficult too because people do go to Google. People do go to
Yeah.
fucking Chat GPT. They'll join Facebook groups, right? And those kind of things. And that's all great. That's fine. But everyone is so different already. Plus, then going through pregnancy, like you said, like everyone's going to have different symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we shouldn't just, and this goes for anything health and fitness, but like maybe we shouldn't just go for that general advice from
For sure.
anyone,
Yeah. Yeah, I
right?
agree. It's like what makes sense for me is not gonna make sense for a lot of other people. But I still feel like there's just a general baseline that's like, okay, like what is
Yeah,
this rooted in? Does you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like,
for sure.
and then
Yeah,
you just kind of like pick and plug based on your own situation. But I'm just realizing the same things like, we have these crazy takes in fitness, right? It's the same with pregnancy. It's just it's a different topic. But it's the you get the people who take it to extremes and believe this, and it's just like, what? Like this doesn't it doesn't sound right, so it probably isn't right, you know? It's just all been very interesting to filter and navigate.
so right now, how long are you pregnant again? 6 months.
Yeah, six and a half months.
A little while ago still. Couple months.
Listen, it is February 20th. I am my due date, which is just a range. My due date is June 1st. So if
Yeah,
that
there you
puts
go.
it in perspective for you, we still got a little
Yeah,
bit to go.
a little while
But it's
ago still. Yeah,
crazy thinking about I've been pregnant since October.
yeah, yeah. It was sick.
It was like, ah.
And been prepping for this even longer. So
Yeah, all of like most of 2024.
yeah, which is great. And still being active, still eating well. So food wise, right? Because you mentioned, very, higher fat, animal based kind of. Are you currently doing anything like supplementation wise?
Yeah, so I'm taking a prenatal. The company that I'm using, Parallel, they formulate their like supplement packs based on the trimester that you're in because different trimesters, you need slightly different nutrients in different trimesters relative to the baby's development and growth. So it's like when you're in your first try, they send you out a specially formulated pack. Then you transition to the second try, it's a slightly different pack. And then same thing for third. And then they even do ones for postpartum, little supplement packs. So been doing that and then still staying on track with like my omegas, vitamin D, magnesium, creatine, and that's really it. So definitely still in the supplement game. A lot of magnesium just because it's like I'm hurting and just for
Yeah.
the relaxation aspect of it, just trying to go about it any way I can to just have something that kind of like gets me to chill out at the end of the day. So a lot of magnesium, a lot of water, a lot of electrolytes still. And like I live in Texas, so it's about to get hot here in like the next month, basically. So making sure to not only stay on track with hydration, but to supplement with electrolytes, a lot of salt, keeping sodium levels up there. I'm not sweating as much as I typically do, but just still, so I'm not just like peeing out everything that I'm consuming. Um, and then yeah, just really just trying to stay as balanced as possible with my food. Like there's definitely been like moments where I'm like approaching it like a diet to where I'm like, all right, like this is like phase two right now. Let's like focus on, like putting together a meal plan for myself. And it's just like I'm eating beef, I'm eating rice, I'm eating a lot of veggies, rinse and repeat. And then sometimes I'm like, all right, like that cake does look kind of good,
Looks kind of good.
So
Yeah.
I'm like enjoying. I think what's been most surprising for a lot of women is like me posting on Instagram like the meals that I'm making for myself and how much I'm eating. But I think it's because a lot of women have no general idea of how much they need to be consuming just for them. So then when you go into pregnancy, they're like, damn, you're eating 2,400 calories. That's a lot of food. They see the pictures and it's like, that's a lot of food. That's a big meal. And it's like, it's really
It's
not.
actually not that much. Like,
It's
yeah,
not that much, but it's like you don't have that frame of reference because you're used to eating 1,400 calories, 1,300 calories. So the whole, you're eating for two, yes and no, right? Because most women start eating so much that it feels like they're eating for two because it's double what they typically eat, but realistically, that's where you should be in general. You know what I mean? Like you're 5'4", 5'5", weighing 160 pounds and not pregnant, you only consume maybe 1,200, maybe 1,300 calories. That's not nearly enough food. So you get pregnant and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. And you finally feel like you have this reason to justify you eating more calories. So you're eating more. And you're like, haha, I'm eating for two. And it's like, no, that's how you should have been in the 2000s, 2,100, 2,200 to begin with. And then that whole eating for two, like we talked about this before, it's like we're talking about the two being a baby who weighs 3 pounds. It's not that much food. It's the difference in like an additional 200 calories. But it's like I don't know. It's a weird like kind of mindset when it comes to eating during pregnancy and like I see so many women who like make jokes about it of like just binge eating cookies and sweets and stuff and it's like oops like baby wanted ice cream and it's like I've still had cravings, right? Being pregnant, but I see it the same as like cravings any other time. If I'm eating in a deficit, right, and I get like a certain craving, you kind of have weigh the pros and cons. Does it make sense for me to like, all right, can I fit this in maybe like what else have I eaten today to where all right, sure I'll have that a couple scoops of ice cream. I think women when they get pregnant, it's those same cravings that you are naturally going to have, but you feel more justified in acting on it. You don't feel that judgment because you're like, well, I'm eating for two. Baby wanted it, baby's craving it. It's like there's still a level of discipline, I feel like, that should be there while you're pregnant, knowing that like you're not craving anymore than what you probably were craving before you were pregnant. You just feel more comfortable acting on it because again, there's no judgment because you're pregnant and you get a pass. Like there has to be some, at least in my opinion, some level of discipline even being pregnant to where it's just like just because I have the craving doesn't mean I have to give in to every single craving, especially when it's ridiculous, especially if I haven't had anything else to eat that's like of sustenance for me and for this baby. It's like weigh those pros and cons. Like maybe
yeah.
if I want the ice cream, let me have a full meal first, and then after see if I still want the ice cream. More times than not, women, they haven't eaten anything all day. They feel like they can't hold anything down, right? And then they're like, well, let me get the ice cream because that's the only thing I can eat. And it's like, did you try to eat anything else though? No, you just went straight for like the sugary stuff. And it's like, had you have maybe tried to get down anything that wasn't that, you probably wouldn't have even wanted the ice cream to begin with.
No, and we're talking calories here, but it's way more than that too. Like you might still technically be getting enough energy that way, but you're not getting the micronutrients, the fiber, and everything else with it.
Right.
Um, and this even goes for pregnant or not. You know what I mean? Um, but I'll tell you this, like, and I know this is the case for you as well. Like, the hardest thing for coaching our female clients is not dieting; it's actually getting them to eat enough,
Yeah.
and actually showing, like, yo, you can actually get away with. If you look at like CrossFit, 24, 2600, easy,
Easy.
easy.
And then
Like,
that's a big range to where you could fit all types of stuff in
yeah,
that 2,400 calorie allotment. And people are like, what? Like, it has to be super strict. And it's like, it can be, but again, like you have more wiggle room than you naturally like think you do. And that's all I'm saying with like pregnancy. It's like if I was already going to eat 2,000 calories, Yeah, sure. I could stand to eat, another 2 to 300 from some cake or whatever sweets I'm craving because I've had 2,000 more of something
Whole
that's
foods
actually
and filling
appealing to me.
stuff, and yeah,
Exactly.
nutritious, 100%. And the difference between that and let's say 1200, 1400, that's massive. Of
For
course, then
sure.
it's gonna feel like a lot. Yeah, but
Right. Yeah.
we're so used to just not eating enough, and that's either not eating enough calories or just not eating enough like whole foods in general. I swear, like 9 out of 10 of my clients, they come in, we bump them up to maintenance, and we push the calories, we bring up whole foods. That is the most difficult part. It's not
It's a
the
mind fuck.
dieting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mind fuck, 100%.
It feels
I had
like they feel like you're trying to sabotage them a little bit of like, hold on, I signed up to like lose weight. Like, why you got me eating all this food, T? And I'm like, I promise you, like, this is what we need you to be doing first. It's crazy.
and it's the hardest part, I think. It's the most rewarding for sure. And it's only going to click for the person going through it, right? The client, once they've done it. And that's the hard shit because it's like we can explain,
Mm-hmm.
we can show them, hey, this is what it's expected to be. And, we're going to go here with your calories, your proteins. They're not going to believe you until it's done. And,
Yeah.
until it's been weeks and weeks and weeks of adding food and then be like, oh shit, I actually lost body fat. I've built muscle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
No
don't have cravings
repercussions
anymore.
for
Yeah,
eating
like
more.
my energy is great now. And I didn't gain a bunch of weight, even though I'm eating 600 calories more.
Mm-hmm.
Then it clicks. And then it's like, okay, now I believe you.
Yeah. Now you got
You
people
know?
like bought in. They're like, all right, I see what we're doing here. I still don't fully get it, but like I can at least trust that you're not just trying to sabotage me and set me up for failure.
Yeah. And that's even more important during pregnancy, right? So that being said, so obviously, right, you're now 6 months in, a couple of months left. Do you, right now, do you notice some days where it's like hard, in terms of maybe cravings, maybe certain symptoms where you're just in a bad mood or something, or more emotional, or something that makes it way more difficult for you to actually still practice the healthy habits and stuff?
Yeah, I'd definitely say this second trimester has been a little more mentally challenging. Even just like what 3 days ago, I'm very weather dependent. I live in Texas, so it's usually sunny out here. It's hot and sunny. Don't love the heat, but I like the sunshine that comes with it, right? So when we don't have that weather and it's gloomy and it's cold, it's just like, oh my goodness. So I found myself the other day of just like, I hate everything. I don't want to be like, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to talk to clients. I don't want to talk to my husband. And it's like, I guess this is like the depths of the pregnancy that, people talk about when you're just like bleh of a person. Like, it's just like, what is happening? And there's really nothing you can do about it but just sit and like kind of feel sorry for yourself, or I don't know how to navigate it. I just know for me, it was tough because I'm just like, this is like the worst day. Like, literally just felt like, just, I don't want to be pregnant anymore. I don't want to like feel uncomfortable in my own body anymore. Like, it's just, yeah, we're definitely getting to the point where, and I'm hoping that doesn't, I think it's going to ebb and flow. I hope it's not a consistent to where I just feel like, dude, fucking, I just can't do this anymore. But we'll see, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely it's getting tough. It's getting tough.
How are you able, or how do you navigate those situations, I guess? Or you just allow yourself to feel like that and be like,
Yeah, the other
say,
day I was just like, I'm done for the day. Like,
yeah. And
I
that's
don't care
fine
what
too, right? Like,
I'm literally, I'm not like, and I felt bad. Like, there were two clients who I didn't respond because I was just like, I literally can't right now. Uh, and it was one of those moments where it's like, I need to make sure I'm good, and I'm not good. So I binge watched Love Is Blind, and like I never do stuff like that, but I was just like truly just feel. I just let myself feel sorry for myself, um, because it was just like, what else am I supposed to do right now? Like, I can't be not pregnant, and this is like clearly this is how I'm feeling. So trying to fight it probably gonna make it worse. Physically, it was like 18 degrees or 22 degrees Out here it was raining. I was like, I'm not going outside. Like, I'm just not. So it was like, all right, this for today, my best bet is to lay here, try and get as comfortable as, because it's like even stuff like that. Laying down is uncomfortable. So I'm like, all right, I'm trying to get as comfortable as possible and hope tomorrow's a better day and like hope, my back doesn't hurt. Hope that I'm not as irritated for no reason tomorrow or like as easily triggered as I am right now for whatever reason. Could just be the hormones. It's just like kind of giving yourself the opportunity to just like, hey, let's take the L for today. Not a good day. And hopefully tomorrow will be better and can, think about implementing something that's like, okay, I'm not going to binge watch TV again today. So I did that yesterday and it didn't make me feel better. So, hey, it's not raining today. It's still cold. Why don't I see if I can go for a walk? And usually when that happens, it's like, okay, if I go walk for 10 minutes and I still feel like shit, I feel just as bad, then I'll turn around and I'll go home. But if I get out there and it's like, all right, it's not too bad. It's not as cold as I thought it was. Got a little breeze. The sun is out. I'll walk for 20. 20 turns into 30. And it's just like, I don't feel better, but I don't feel any worse. So it's like, we'll take that win, go back home, and then try and figure out
Figure
what
out
I
the
can.
next day.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like piecing it up of like thinking about those regular habits of like how would I approach this on a normal day if I was having a bad day? And then just doing what I can based on circumstances, how I'm feeling, external factors, climate, all of that stuff. And then just kind of like finding those like compromises, those happy mediums where it's like, all right, something's better than nothing here. If it's not gonna make me feel any worse, might as well just do it. It's something semi-productive. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's still healthy, getting some movement in, and that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to deal with things in general. Because again, pregnancy or not, like we're gonna have crappy days. Sometimes you just gotta sit with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta allow ourselves to feel like crap for whatever reason that may be, and maybe, like you said, just take the L, and maybe next day we'll do again. We'll do better. We'll try again,
Yeah. I
and
think
then
just
maybe it's a
like
little
not
bit better.
staying in it for too long is the biggest thing for me of like, all right, it's been 2 days. Like, let's get up.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
go
like
do
let's feel the feeling, and then let's
Yeah,
also try to move on at some point. Is
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, even in small steps. So no, it's great. I mean, again, I also want to be respectful of your time. Again, thank you for coming on. It's cool to see that you're doing well. You're able to hang in there.
As
Thanks
best
for
as I can,
as
yes.
best as you can, of course. No, share like thanks for sharing your experiences, because I think it's really cool to hear it from someone who's actually pregnant, and also for the listener, like understanding how personal it is. That certain things online may or may not help you, and certain things you can do activity wise, nutrition wise. So thanks for sharing that. I'll ask you this: so where can people find you?
Instagram, train with Tee. Best place to find me. There every day. Well,
There every day.
yeah.
Cool. So do you have any like news announcements coming up or something? Like you're still coaching, right?
Yeah, so I'm the head trainer at Nike Running Studio. So we have soon to be two locations here in Austin. So I mostly just manage the training staff there, not doing a ton of coaching anymore, obviously, just being pregnant. So that and then I want to focus right now on content before putting out any offers because, as mentioned, trying to shift my content and reach a different audience before I just like start taking on people. So, yeah, that's really what life looks like for me right now. And then 3.5 months, we'll have a baby, and it'll probably change a lot with what, day to day looks like and coaching, trying to figure all that stuff out, but one thing at a time. So,
One thing at a time. Absolutely.
yeah.
T, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Johan.